Welcome to Stitching Tales, a podcast about all things sewing and what it's really like to run a sewing business, with your hosts Malena Hjerpe of Hazelhen Patterns and Johanna of The Last Stitch. Hey Malena!
Hey Johanna! So what are we going to talk about today?
Well, today I have a big plastic box filled with threads.
Yeah, you come prepared.
Yes, I come prepared. I was like, I don't see myself as a thread hound or a thread collector, but when I was visiting my sewing studio, which is next door, I realized, I have so many different types of threads.
Yeah, it was your suggestion to have this episode topic, and I was like, yeah, what can I contribute? You're on your own here. Please enlighten me. Maybe I will be like, oh yeah. Fingers crossed. But I know overlock thread and the regular thread.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Yeah, and I should also say this as caveat, I am by no means a thread expert. This is not my area of expertise, so I definitely think that some of the things I have some knowledge gaps, I would definitely say. So do not consider this being the ultimate guide to sewing threads, but I will talk about the kind of threads that I use. Of course, like understanding different weights and purposes, my own experience, and we're definitely going to talk about some brands that we like, and the value of getting good quality thread, which I will also demonstrate. And I will also talk because something that I know a lot of you are intrigued by is what is a newer invention, which is thread for sewing machine purposes. Because I know that a lot of you, just like myself, are sometimes sewing things knitted on the using a sewing machine, which is a little bit of a challenge, especially if you want to do like straighter stitching, because the stitches will pop. So I'm going to also share my experimentation using this thread for some sewing.
And do you also have fuzzy nylon thread?
Oh, of course.
Of course.
Now I'm holding up a strong fuchsia colored thread as well, the flossy one. I'm going to talk about that as well. So let's think of this as a scratching the surface overview, highly subjective take on sewing threads and which one you should buy, which one you don't really need, and of course, understanding like thread as much as I can. I feel like I'm going to apologize so many times now. I'm like, don't ask me too difficult questions, Malena, because...
No, but we had in a Q&A episode previously, we did get a question that can you use the overlock thread on your regular sewing machine? And we both said no.
Yep. And
the overlock thread, just the difference. Explain, what is the difference between a regular thread and the overlock thread?
Yeah, the two biggest thing is, of course, the first one is the, I'm going to hold up here, the overlock thread. So it always comes on cones because, as we know, especially the overlock thread in the looper, it requires so much more thread than a regular, straight stitch on a sewing machine. So you definitely want to get these, and these are, of course, I think this one is, the one I'm holding now is 2,500 meters long. That's crazy.
And that's I think, this quite small cone.
Yes! Yes, they're probably big ones. I don't have... So, think about it. That's like 1.5 mile or something like that, or over 1.5 mile. You could just basically... I could go from my home almost down to the city center just rolling out this thread. So that in itself is fascinating, and also understandably why you sometimes might think about, why can't I use this? Because one cone of overlock thread is roughly the same as a good quality sewing machine thread, which I'm holding up here, a regular spool from the Gutermann, and I think that's about 200 meters. So this one is almost 10 times, and that's why when you get overlock thread, you usually never have to buy another cone. I mean, unless you're sewing the same color over and over and again, and like in the. But as you say, the main difference is not the length or the price; it's the quality of the thread. Now, one thing that if you look closely on all thread spools, regardless if you're having a cone or a regular spool, you will see a number which tells the thickness of the thread, and it's usually for home sews. It's usually measured in weight. So that means that the but it's the how shall I put it? Now I'm gonna sorry. I did explain this in one of my books. I know this, but I feel
Let's see if the brain is braining now.
Braining is not braining right now, but you can check out my books. I will link to those in the description section. But anyways.
But is it the weight or the count of threads that are spun together?
So it's measured the weight counted on the yard in relation to the yardage. So, for instance, the most common for home sewing is that. Let me see here if I can pick it up. It's measured by the relation between the weight and the yard, basically. So what that means is that it's the opposite. So otherwise, there's another system called TEX, which is done in the garment industry, and in the TEX system, it makes more sense because the higher the number, the thicker the thread. But because of the relation here now between the weight system that we're talking now, where you measure the weight versus yard, you will have the opposite situation. So a regular sewing thread, like the one I'm holding up here from Gutermann, is let me see here. It's 220 yards per VGS. I mean, it's weight gram situation. I mean, I'm sorry.
But is it the amount of yard per gram?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I'm already failing in this episode. I'm sorry. I thought I had this covered. I thought I remember. But the thing is that means that a thinner thread will have a higher number, whereas, for instance, the heavier top stitching thread, from Gutermann, same brand, it has the it's 110 instead of 220. So this is, even though it's twice as thick, it has half the number. I think the furthest one I could find in my own personal sewing stash is this is probably the thickest thread. This is buttonhole thread. So if you really want to have like a thick thread, even you can do like top stitching on jeans, you could go even higher than regular denim thread and get buttonhole thread, because that one is thick. It's like a rope. I mean, I'm trying to pull now if you're not watching the video version, and I mean, I am. It's cutting into my fingers. It's.
I need to buy one of those in white, because when you sew on buttons, like decorative buttons on bridal wear, I use regular sewing thread, but I do it like. I have 2 threads, so it's double the strength, and basically, but oh my god, you need to sew so many times before it actually is secured. So I that is on my buying list.
Yeah, it's so great. I mean, totally worth the investment. I mean, it's pricey. I think these rolls are just it's 30 meters. But you don't. I mean, for sewing a couple of button holes,
sew by hand.
No, yeah. It's definitely nothing to worry about. Definitely worth the investment. So, again, and then that brings you to your initial question, which was about the overlock thread. So it's even thinner than regular sewing machine thread. So that means, unfortunately, it's not as durable. And I think it's also. Again, I feel like I thought I prepped, and then I realized I didn't have prep as much. I'm sorry, but it's also, you can spun threads in different ways. So if you look up close for an overlock thread, you can see it's a little bit flossier, and a little, you can see some lintish. Whereas on a regular sewing machine thread, it's spun in different ways, so it's much more even, and it's just good quality. Now I'm holding up the regular sewing machine thread from Gutermann, and it pops, but it takes a while. I'm using polyester here now, so just for reference. Whereas if I'm using overlock thread, oftentimes it's very easy to pull, depending on the quality again. So yeah, that's why the main reason why you should get overlock thread for your sewing machine uses is, first of all, it's not as durable, and it's a little bit too thin, so you won't get those beautiful stitching as well. So, but if you want to save money, you can get sewing machine thread on a cone as well. So that means that just because it is on a cone doesn't mean it's designed for overlock. So here I have a brand, I think it's called Tack or something like that. I mean, my eyesight is yeah, anyways, this is a 5,000 meter cone, speaking about, getting value for your money, and this is sewing machine thread.
Okay.
So yeah, so I use this because if you're like, but how can I use this thread on a sewing machine because it's a massive cone? I mean, how do I get that on that little tiny pin? Well, you can buy some adapter if you're so inclined, but I have a much easier way. Do you know what I mean, Malena? The easy way.
Do you place it on the table and just, or
no?
What do you do?
I wind it on a bobbin spool.
Ah, smart.
Mm.
When I have done that, I have just put it on the table, and then it goes through where you re-thread the machine, but then it can get stuck a little bit and it becomes uneven, so it is not something I recommend.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, because obviously when you're winding it on the bobbin spool, you will still have to put it on the pin. You can use those
you can hold it by hand or something.
You can hold it by hand, and you can control it, because as also, even feeding is not an issue when you're just using it on a spool. I mean, you usually have to hold up the thread a little bit, maybe help this get around, but that's definitely the best way of using this, and unless you want to invest in those adapters, which I've seen. I've not tried them, but so it makes sense. I mean, thread is a pricey thing. I don't know what's like in other countries, but because do you buy Gutermann thread? What are your sewing? What are kind of brands that you're buying for regular sewing?
I'm trying to remember when did I latest buy something. But yeah, Gutermann, it's recommend them definitely. And if we no, you can't use overlock thread to a regular sewing machine, but you can use regular thread to an overlocker. If you don't want to buy, for example, tons of different colors for the overlocker, because you usually want to buy 4 cones, so the colors are the same. But then you can use, for example, if you buy overlock thread in black, white, gray, some neutral color, and then you use the threads that are through the needles, then you can use regular sewing thread to match your fabric. So then maybe you don't need to buy every single color for every single project you use. So there is no problem using a regular sewing thread to the overlocker. It's thicker, it's a little bit more durable, but it works fine. Of course, it's going to be a little bit expensive if you only use it in that sense. But the looper thread you can have as overlocker then, and you don't see that from the outside when the seam is opening up a little bit. You don't see those threads, so those can be in a contrasting color if you don't want to match everything.
Yeah,
because sometimes if you sew a lot of colorful garments, you are gonna have to invest in the colors for your threads then as well.
Yeah, I don't want to think about how much money my thread collection is have cost me. I mean, it's a really good idea, as you say, because also if you want to save money, again, that's the same. I use neutral thread for the loopers. But also, it's more important to have good quality overlock thread in the needle threads on your overlock, and the same goes for cover stitch as well, I would say. So if you have some not quite sure thread, something you got in some bin at the grocery store or something like that, you can use that for the looper thread and then go for the good solid thread for the needle. So that saves a lot of money as well. Just to give you an example, because right now I'm holding up, speaking about quality, I just want to demonstrate here. I have 2 spools of overlock thread. They're both black. One is Toldelock. I think it's Gutermann's overlock brand. Again, I mean, I thought I had it all sorted out, but then I realized it's gone. But it's a slightly pricier, and as I mentioned, it's just 2,500 meters instead of 5,000. And then in this other hand, I am holding a no name overlock thread, black again. So on like they looked exactly the same. This one is I get twice the length at the same price as I get for this one. Unfortunately, if I'm now holding out the no name brand, the black thread, and I just pull it ever so slightly, bang, it breaks almost immediately. I hope you can hear the snatch. And now I'm holding the overlock thread from the Toldelock brand, and I mean, it's snatched, but
you had to pull
twice the amount of time to get it to break. So yes,
there is a quality difference there.
There is a quality difference, and I should even better if I had stored it properly, because I guess we mentioned that too. I will admit that some of my overlock spools, because there's so many, I do have them on a rack on the wall. The best advice is that all thread should be stored out away from dust and sunlight in enclosed boxes or something like that. I do that with my sewing thread, but I unfortunately don't do it with all my overlock thread. It's just so nice to have it accessible, next to the sewing machine, instead of having to like figure out in which box which color is. So I do as I say, not as I do, I guess.
But it's so pretty to have all the overlock threads on the wall with all the different colors. But don't have it in direct sunlight.
Yeah,
because sunlight damage fabrics, threads, as well. So avoid that at least.
100%. That's very important. That's a very important point.
But can you use an overlock thread to the cover stitch machine?
Yes, you can. I mean, that's normally what the manufacturer recommends. But again, I would say, if I would say general advice is that an overlocker, because it usually you deal with 2 rows of needles, threads, 2 rows of needle stitching, and 2 loopers, so you have basically 4 threads. It's a very durable seam. I would say you can get away with more rubbish overlock. You can get away with more rubbish thread in the overlocker or a serger than you can with a cover stitch machine. And I would definitely advise against using a rubbish overlock thread. I'm sorry, I'm rubbish, but bad quality. You get in the bargain bins, the no name brands that cost nothing. Because if you use that in the needles, I've found that I get more problems both with the stitching and especially also with breaking stitches after you wear it. That's not
it's
fun
like
with
the
knits.
needle, the eye, it tears the thread apart basically.
Yeah.
So it snaps basically after a while.
That's very, very, very so. So if I'm like particular about it, I oftentimes actually use a regular sewing machine thread in the needles when I'm doing cover stitching, and then I use regular overlock thread in the looper. But again, it also depends. The problem, of course, with the cover stitch is that you can get away with unmatching thread in the overlocker, but it's not so great when you're hemming it off.
No, then you would really want the colors to match.
And then you have this problem that you mentioned previously, Malena. How many threads do you need to buy? And then you have this very particular type of purple. They're probably gonna sew once.
Yeah, I'm usually so cheap when I go to a store that I just buy one thread. I know I'm gonna hem it on my cover stitch machine, but then I use the bobbin method, as you say, that I make 2 bobbins with the same thread, and I'm just using that for the hem because it's not such a long seam that I'm gonna sew anyway. So a bobbin is fine. I don't even like the full bobbin with that thread. So yeah, you can get by if you with those weird colors that you know you're not gonna use anyway for any other projects. So then you can get by.
Yeah. So you don't have to, you use the bobbin. It's your best friend. That's a good investment. We haven't really talked about that, but always have a few extra bobbins, right? I mean, it's so inexpensive, and it's such a bummer if you just want to like. My habit is usually that I have, just like you do like a small roll and I want to end, like fill it because I know, and then I'm like next time I just add on that thread, and then I have like a layer cake.
Yeah, you can have 5 different colors on the same bobbin. Totally recognize that.
Yes. So, but it's nice. It's nice to have more bobbins. I sometimes when I go like sewing fair or something like that, you don't need to have the fancy brands for the bobbins. I mean, you don't have to. I'm probably not going to say sewing machine brands, but you don't usually. There's a couple of standard ones, and speaking of bobbins, I use metals because I've had plastic breaks. Do you use plastic bobbins or do you use
No, I have
metal?
mine metal, but I only have. I mean, there are. Sometimes you can't switch bobbin from like one machine to the other. They are brand specific, but there are other like non-brands who make bobbins that are suitable for other kind of brands. So just be a little bit careful with so it actually goes to your machine. But
Exactly.
I mean, if we use bobbin for this purpose, then I mean, obviously it doesn't matter at all what kind of brand we have, because we are not gonna have it in the actual sewing machine. So it depends a little bit. I would say what kind of machine you have, which bobbin is suitable.
Yeah. And also, I should say I completely fumbled the ball with the weight. I will say that. Completely confused. Sorry.
What is the latest update?
Yes, I'm sorry. Don't
No
listen
worries.
to this podcast. Anyways, no. It's the yardage. That is just the conversion. So it's just the yardage between the meters. But it still doesn't make sense. I don't know. There is a mesh. Oh, sorry. I mean, we have the best listeners in the world. So please inform us on this topic. Because I was sure that. Because as I mentioned, the text number is the standard way of having a number of the thickness. So higher number, the higher the thicker the thread. Makes sense. But as I mentioned previously, in the home sewing thread, they don't always label the text number, which I think is really annoying, because you definitely want to see the thickness clearly stated, not just that it says like a thick thread, because that helps a lot when it comes to picking the right thread. So I'm a little bit bummed about that. I'm trying to think now if I'm holding up, but none of these state the text on the brands that I have in the box.
Is there something now, SPI or Ply? Is there something?
That could be too as well, yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
No, I don't know either what number of. But one thing that we can look for, you mentioned in the beginning that all your threads are polyester.
Yes.
Why do we go with polyester and not cotton or natural fiber?
Yes, I mean, it's such a bummer, because we love our natural fibers. We wear a lot of natural fibers, but unfortunately cotton, not the most durable thread, especially as you and I like to sew, a lot of stretchy fabrics. And I mean, unfortunately, durability is not the same. It also ages faster. I mean, it gets more brittle. I mean, polyester have a longer shelf life, I would argue. So
yeah, it's stronger, basically.
Yeah, 100%. I'm just trying to now. I'm still lost in the weights.
It's bugging you.
It's bugging me, so annoying. But anyway, that's how we roll in this podcast. We will definitely make sure that we will link to a better explanation that you're going to get in this episode. But yes, 100%. And it's definitely seen a shift, because when I began sewing in the 80s, cotton thread was very common. And I remember that for instance, if I made a cotton shirt, I was very I did a conscious choice of using cotton thread. So in my logic back then, I was very much, if I sew cotton, I'm going to use cotton thread because I don't want to mix materials like that. But now actually this morning I tried to find cotton thread in my collection, and I couldn't even find one.
Yeah, I think the most common is absolutely it's polyester. The only, when it's like not good to use polyester thread, I would say if you sew linen cotton garment and you want to dye it. Because then you obviously need to dye it with cotton dye. The polyester thread will not be dyed in the same way then. So that's the only then you maybe need to actually have cotton thread. Yeah,
that's very true. I mean, it's just also maybe you're doing like a quilt or something like that, something that won't be like under a lot of like stress and strain. You can definitely get away with cotton as well. I think it's also depend on what type of garment you're making or project, for instance. And I think also if you just want to have some decorative stitching, cotton thread is going to look really nice again. But that's because it's not really under a lot of duress, so to speak. So, unfortunately, I mean, unless something has happened with the cotton thread, it's at level up. I don't feel like confident. It's such a bummer as well when you sew something and then it breaks because the thread was. And I know that everyone of you listening, watching this episode know this already. But I mean, the difference between bad quality thread and good quality thread is like massive.
But also here, like there are limitations with natural fibers. Polyester, man-made fiber made out of oil, basically. Those fibers, I mean, they could be however long they are created and then spun together, several of them, to make it really, really strong. And the more you spin, the more it's spun, the stronger it is, I think. While with cotton, for example, then you have the staples, the length of those fibers, like it's not that long, unfortunately. So you have a lot of fibers, then you then spin together, but it is the fiber in itself, and since they are so much shorter, it is weaker, unfortunately. So when it comes to thread, go for natural fiber in most cases as you can when it comes to fabric, but threads, sorry, there is a benefit with actually having polyester there.
Yeah. Very, very true. So let me see here. Other things we could talk about.
I want to hear about the fuzzy nylon.
Yeah, the fuzzy nylon, yes. This thread has different names. It's called flossy nylon, woolly nylon.
Woolly nylon. That's not fuzzy.
But it's also flossy thread. So what I'm holding in my hand now is, speaking of brands, I will name names of the brands I think is good. And this, I'm holding like a fuchsia thread, which is called Aeroflock from Madeira. I think it's Madeira.
Can you hold it closer to the camera so you can see how it is? Because it looks like a regular thread now, but now when you see it really close, like it has not been spun.
Yes,
basically.
Exactly. So just hang on a minute.
Johanna is now running and grabbing something. I have actually never used this thread, but I don't sew so much activewear, and it is usually for activewear that you have this kind of thread, right?
Exactly. So if you look inside, for instance, bathing suits, you will often see that it's using the flossy thread. It has a couple of benefits. It has good stretch quality. It's very soft and kind to the skin because of the flossy. It looks like dental floss almost, but even flossier. And also, which we talked about in recent episode about cover stitching, you can use it in the loopers for a very decorative effect. So what I'm holding up now is like a mock flat lock that I've sewn on my cover stitch machine. And as you can see, I'm going to hold up close. You can see. Do you see how thick it is?
It looks like the thread is like really, really thick, but it's just that it has not been spun together tightly, so the threads is more like spreading out, basically.
Yes, and it's interesting because I have a good selection of these woolen nylons, or it's sometimes nylon, sometimes polyester, but they behave very differently. So some they like feather out a lot, like I showed you this example. Otherwise, are much more subtle. So you have to try and see what kind of brand you like or for your particular purpose. So it's a little bit different in that way, and also the thickness varies as well. But I really, really like the Aeroflock by Madeira. Yeah, highly recommend. It comes in beautiful colors as well.
And the seam, it becomes very soft, like it has really soft hand feel, while if it would be a regular overlock thread, it can be a little bit scratchy almost. So it gives a really nice surface. So it's not itching when you wear it in the same way if you have those seam on the inside. So it's a very common, I would say, in activewear and also babies wear. I have seen it because then the seam is less scratchy, basically. Yeah,
underwear as well. If you're wearing underwear, you're going to love this. So definitely get a few rolls. Again, you don't have to get in every color, of course. But
do you use it for all the threads on the overlocker then, or just the loop ones?
Good question. No. You, generally speaking, if you're dealing with the kind of really fluffy thread that we talked about now that I showed you, these will not feed well into needles. So what you do is that you use regular thread in the needles, or overlock thread, and then you use this just in the loopers, and that goes both for if you're doing a cover stitch, you use it in the looper, or if you're using a serger, you use it in the looper. There is one I tried, I think Gutermann has one that has quite a less amount of flossiness to it that you can do for needles. But I personally have not, I don't see the point really. I mean, the point is that you want the softness, and that's what the looper provides, not really the needles, because those are not closest to your skin and just tiny, tiny stitches. And also, they also have some really nice built-in stretch. So now I'm holding another brand, which is less flossy, but it's a similar principle. It's called Wonderfill. And again, it's just like a stretch. And I'm pulling it now, you can see it's... I think that probably took the longest snap of all the threads that I've shown so far. So, again, for those 4-way, stretchy, activeweary, bathing thingy, underwear thingy, probably this is your best friend.
Cool. I don't think I have ever sewn with that thread. Maybe when I was back in school 20-ish years ago, but yeah, it gives such a nice hand feel on the seam compared to regular thread. Yes,
and another brand that I have also similar. I know a lot of people in the US, I think, buy this Maxilock stretch thread, soft like yarn texture nylon, and this is super. I haven't opened this, but you can see here. Do you see? It's like a cat's tail. It's probably. So this is going to be very flossy and very kind to your body if you get this. So again, not all threads are created similar, but a good option to explore for sure. Also another tip, because another tip is to think about the needles as well. If you're doing like top stitching, like for instance on denim, the thicker the thread, the bigger the needle eye is going to be, and on regular sewing needles the eye increases proportionally to the needle size. But when you're using like heavy thread, for instance, for top stitching, it's a little bit tricky, and especially with age and the eyesight being down in the basement. I mean, that's why I love getting those dedicated top stitching needles. I buy mine from Gutermans. I think they are called top stitching needles, and those eyes are almost twice the size of a normal eye.
Those must be thick needles then.
That's 60. They don't come in like 65 or delicate. Like no. I think they go up to maybe 120 or something like that. So it's a heavy duty only for heavy duty sewing, but it's wonderful to have, and also they are shaped a little bit different, so they are according to the branding. I mean, again, I'm not an expert, but according to Schmetz, who sells those, they say that the point is also designed, and the needles designed to be optimized for top stitching through heavy fabric. So if you are top stitching and are having troubles, either like me getting into the thick thread into the small eye, or just because you think you could do better with better stitching, then you can also look into that option as well. I always
but I can imagine. I mean, if you are top stitching on denim, I mean, how many layers are you actually sewing through? It's not just two; it's the fold and all the seam allowances and everything. It quickly adds up to many layers. So I would totally understand. Like, you need a specific needle for that.
100%. And another thread, because we did mention briefly natural fibers, but I do have a natural fiber that I do actually enjoy. Or no, I shouldn't enjoy. I love touching it. I don't.
Is it silk?
Yes. So now I'm holding up silk thread, which you ideally use for hand sewn buttonholes, which is not my favorite thing in the world to do. But if you're good at it, having a silk thread definitely elevates the garment. You get a beautiful, nice sheen. It's a dream to sew. It's so soft and kind, nice to wear. And again, I don't remember the price tag from this one, but I can pretty much safely say that it was probably by far the most expensive per yard. all the threads that I'm having. So. But yeah, if you like to sew your own buttonholes, I think it's a worthwhile splurge. Have you used? Do you use that, or have you? I wonder what's like in the.
No, I never had silk thread for anything. I think I have some spool somewhere, but no, I never actually used one. Hand sew buttonholes. Never tried that one. Don't think I ever will either.
I don't
Good
know
on you if you do that. Kudos.
Yeah,
but not my jam.
I think maybe I mentioned this on the podcast as well, but I took like many years ago at the local design museum. I took a quick course. It was like a workshop with a trained tailor that showed different techniques. So we had to practice, and so she showed how to sew, because good. Proper tailoring, the buttonholes are hand sewn, and there's a particular stitch. I don't know if you're familiar with. You can go to any older sewing book and see it. So you kind of tie into a knot. You do two steps at the same time to create that beautiful shape. But it's very, very hard to get every single stitch even. So that's why it looks like not so great anyways. But with the help of my tailor mentor, I tried it. I think there's a photo. I think I probably posted it before, but she basically gave me the feedback that my buttonholes look like cement.
What? I can't imagine.
I look at cement or concrete. I try to think the English word, but the grey uneven stuff you use for buildings. No, you can't do that. That looked like cement, she said. Literally. And I was like... I didn't try another hand-sewn buttonhole for 10 years after that.
Yeah, no, Yeah.
But I know how to do it. I mean, I know technically how to do it, but I find it incredibly important, difficult to get it even. But maybe in my older years, I will go back to that.
Maybe you will. It's your final quest to tackle the hand sewn buttonhole in silk.
Yeah,
or maybe
such a
not.
bummer.
You don't
Yeah.
need to have
No.
been able to do everything.
No.
But one thread that I think you maybe do have used a little bit more lately, the stretch thread.
Yes, the thread. Yes, we mentioned that in the beginning of this podcast, and I have talked about this a couple of times, and of course now I try to find it. Yes, so as we all know, sewing stretchy fabrics on a sewing machine comes with its set of challenges. One thing in particular that is not compatible is straight stitching on stretchy fabrics, because what happens? Well, if you stretch out the garment, the seams will pop 9 out of 10 times. I mean, you can accommodate that using shorter stitch lengths, because you can think of the stitching like a spring, so the more coils there are, the more it's going to stretch out. So for instance, that's why you can stretch a coil, but you can't stretch a ruler, basically, because you don't have that. I try to think of it as I try to explain what I mean, which is also why a sewing machine zigzag stitch works really well for stretchy fabrics, because it has a zigzag, so when you stretch it out, there's still enough thread to prevent the seam from popping. But it has gotten more and more common to sell a stretch thread on a regular spool designed for a sewing machine. So the brand I'm holding here is Mettler, another brand I highly recommend, good quality. And I have not tried this a ton, but for one pair of Vide pants, one of my sewing patterns, it's a pants pattern, but it has back darts. I normally sew darts on knits using a narrow zigzag stitch, because that way I still get some stretch, but because I use this narrow zigzag stitch, you can't really see the unevenness. It look from the outside, it looks almost like a sewing with a straight stitch, but it won't pop. So I did try to sew vertical darts. I will say they were not bust darts, obviously they were vertical darts in the back, with a straight stitch using the Mettler stretch thread, and that was I think I released that pattern about 1.5 years ago, something like that. Darts are looking fine, no problem whatsoever. They have stretch.
How stretchy is the thread? Can you can you show?
Yes, I can show. I try to see if you see. Yeah, see.
Okay,
it's really stretchy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, really stretchy.
Cool.
So that means, like, if you think of it like in normal usage, it should theoretically be able to accommodate stretching. So I would think that you could potentially sew a bust dart in a stretchy fabric using this without no problem using a straight stitch. Again, using shorter stitch length, of course. I don't know, but I guess I have not tried it for hemming, because I can imagine that what you were most interested in is, can I use this as a straight stitch to hem or top stitch?
On a really maybe on a Ponte di Roma that doesn't have that much stretch in it, maybe, but I would not use it for like a fabric that has a lot of stretch in it. Then maybe fine if you have a twin needle and use that thread, because the twin needle, it has a little bit of stretch but not great stretch, but if you use it combined with that thread, then I think it might be actually a really good solution. And especially also if you want to do like top stitching around the neckline and you don't have a cover stitch machine, so you can use a chain stitch, then I think you could use this thread as well. Like that would be really suitable. But yeah, for the hem on the top, it is on the horizontal, it's on the stretchy way on the fabric. Maybe. Yeah. I'm a little bit hesitant, depending of course on the fabric, how much stretch it has, but would be a little bit careful there.
Yeah, do a sample, but definitely get a roll in some neutral color that you know that you're gonna use a lot. And of course, this I used it both in the needle and the bobbin thread. Because of the stretchiness and the lightness, I wouldn't say it doesn't have that kind of beautiful even surface that a regular all-purpose polyester thread has. So for top stitching, again, it won't look as sleek, I think, as well. But I mean, give it a go. I mean, it does cost a little bit more, but again, it's you won't use up spool that, you know, it's a very specific use. So I think I could highly recommend you, if you know, maybe black or grey or something like that. If you know that you sew a lot in that color, you can definitely try it out. So I mean, obviously because I have a cover stitch machine and I use that, so I guess I'm not really in like the market for it as perhaps someone who's only having a sewing machine and maybe overlocker and want to see if you could do it that way. But you could probably also use it if you're doing a twin needle on your sewing machine to hem knit. You could probably use it in the bobbin as well. Probably have to figure out the tension settings to get that right as well. But I think, yeah, it's again, as you know, I'm sure that dear listeners have more to say on this topic. Do you have any more brands, any more experience? Perhaps you've been a bit more adventurous than I've been, because I've sewn it. I mean, I have tested it on scraps and have not have anything burst, but you know, it's one thing to do it on scraps and then like sew a complete garment and wear it. So I only like a complete garment using I think I use it for the pockets as well. I mean, yeah, I went pretty much for all the sewing. So I think I did it all. I had it in the sewing machine all the time. I don't think I used any regular thread on that project. So it has
on detail. It sounds like a good purpose to use it, but maybe not on the side seam, on the inside leg seam. Then an overlock thread, or overlock seam, or a zigzag thread, I think would be still more durable. So choose wisely.
Yeah, 100%. Just a quick mention again, as we talked about, good sewing thread costs money. Bad sewing thread is cheap. You can, I don't know if you still, I'm sure if other countries, do you remember those tiny little spools when you went to grocery store and they had those like discount bins? You can get those tiny little spools. And when I didn't know better in my younger days, I used to buy one of those, and that was probably the crappiest thread you could ever get. So I wouldn't recommend that, but I know that you listening are not doing that. But I will say though, I will make a case for low quality thread. So for instance, here I'm holding one of those cheap rolls. I mean, most if you go to most sewing stores or if you buy online, you usually have the options of buying like a good quality, like Coats or Gutermann or similar brands. But then you also have like this no name on a maybe paper spool, much like you get 5 times the thread for the same amount. This pops quite easily, but I love basting. And I don't waste a good quality thread on basting. So
when you baste by hand, then
exactly, hand basting, exactly, and also machine basting as well. I mean, if you're going to remove the stitching, if you're doing gathers, for instance, as well, if you're going to remove the threads afterwards, if you're, I mean, sometimes the biggest pain is to switch threads, not saving like a cent or a fraction of a krona, but I will say though that I have some spools of bad quality thread that it has its purpose in my thread stash.
There's a purpose for everything.
Yes.
No, but the most annoying thing with those threads is when you have it in your machine and the needle, it basically tears the thread apart. Yeah. So annoying. And you try to re-thread it several times and like, what is wrong? And it's just like, it's just the wrong thread. Sorry.
Yeah. It gets so fussy as well. It's like a cat's tail, and it's like you can almost see it like disintegrating just because of the friction of like going through the eye of the needle is basically causing it to break. Yeah. So not a good idea. I also feel still incredibly embarrassed that I didn't manage to do the proper research on the weight thing. But behind the scenes now, as I've talked, I I have done some research, and there again, I feel so dumb because it's funny when you write a book, then you know this stuff, but as soon as the book is done, you forget about it because you had to do very specific research. It was the same as I was a journalist. I was like an expert in a subject for 48 hours, and then I couldn't remember anything afterwards. But so there are different weight systems, like the text I mentioned. There's a WT. There's also a one called NO/TKT, and all these are different and calculated different, and it's very difficult. I see now that you have to go to the website of the thread manufacturer to see the weight of that specific thread, because as I mentioned here, I had struggled to find it on any of the labels on the actual spools that I have. So do your research again, but I mean,
go with the big brands, go with the good quality, and regular sewing thread, overlock thread, top stitching threads. I think those are the main three. Yep. If you keep track of those, which one is which, I think you are good to go in 99% of your case, like all the cases.
Yeah. Yes, very, very good explanations. Because I don't think I should say. Of course, I know there are lots of other threads as well. There is invisible thread. There is embroidery thread. You can, for instance, use this like high sheen. I think it's rayon or synthetic thread that you can use. Of course, if you have an embroidery machine, but you can also use for decorative stitching. This is not something I have done a lot. So I can't really give you much. Do you have tried those decorative threads or?
I have done the invisible thread when I was embroidery, like freehand embroidering, like lace on top of tulle. To be honest, I mean, depends a little bit on what kind of fabric you use, if you actually need it or not, and where you. But yeah, if it's like tulle on tulle and you don't want the thread to be visible, an invisible thread is of course really good solution. Quite expensive and quite you consume quite a lot of it in one go. So I switched to actually the regular thread when I sew lace on top, because then I obviously sew on top of the lace, so then the regular thread is not visible anyway. So it depends a little bit on what kind of project you are using. But yeah, invisible thread, then it's basically like looks like a not silicone thread, but it's like an
fishing line.
Difficult
I would
to
say
unpick.
like a fishing
line. Yeah,
fishing line. Exactly. Yes, I have it too, and I've tried it as well. But I had the same conclusion. It was very expensive for. I think again, it's a very small amount on the spools you can get here in Sweden. I was like,
yeah, it disappeared quickly.
Yes, quite literally. That's why it's called invisible thread.
Yeah, poofy was gone.
Yeah, but of course, again, so if you have any other threads or tips or things like that, and also again brand recommendations, because I think that it's very helpful. I mean, we all have our favorites, and I'm not saying that. For instance, the reason why we are such big fan of Gutemans is, I think, twofold. First of all, it's the most readily available good quality thread in Sweden as well. They have a great assortment, and also it's great stuff. But it comes with a price tag, so I can understand that you might look into options, and I know there are other brands that are maybe not as well known that still offer value for money thread. So that could be a good tip if you have some for people that might balk at the price. But I honestly don't care. I just want to have good thread.
Yeah, compared to the total cost of the garment is usually still pretty small. So
yeah,
don't be cheap when it comes to the thread.
Yeah, that's probably the best home take home advice on this. Don't try to be frugal on the thread. It's gonna cost you later for sure, and of course.
Yeah, it's gonna cost you in frustration, the worst kind.
Yeah. Do you? Now I feel like I'm rambling a little bit, Malena. But do you feel like you learned something on this episode?
Yeah. It's there are actually more threads than you just think of. So yeah, and choosing the one to your purpose, it's crucial, I would say.
Yeah, very true. good quality, pick your thread wisely, and check the labels. I think also that's one of the reasons why I like to buy well-known brands. They usually have websites with a lot of helpful information on these things that we talked about today. Purposes, matching needles, for instance, what kind of things you need to consider. So, which is probably not the you won't have the same resource library if you get one of those like no-name thread brands that you can find sometimes. It's just they have other focuses than providing good information.
Yeah.
Everybody else. All right. Well, I hope we managed to keep a slight. Do you say red thread in other countries as well? I've seen it pop up a little bit because we say röda tråden, which means red thread, which is a saying that you're able to be coherent.
Sticking to the topic, or
sticking to the topic, exactly. So hopefully you were able to follow the red thread. If not, especially when it comes to weights, I mean. But it is what it is. It is what it is.
Yeah, I think we all learned a lot here. So thank you for this. It was very, very enlightening.
Oh, happy to hear you enjoyed it. And also, thank you to all of you who listened to this episode. And again, if you have some feedback, tips, whatever, you can contact us on our social, Instagram, Stitching Tales Pod, YouTube, Stitching Tales Pod, and Gmail. You can email us at stitchingtalespod@gmail.com.
Yes, looking forward to hear your thoughts on this topic.
Yes. So, thank you again very much for listening and watching. I am Johanna Lundström.
And I am Malena Hjerpe. Bye bye.
Bye bye.